Celtic Myths and Legends by T.W. Rolleston. Chapter 5, Tales of the Ultonian Cycle. Death of Ferdia. On the fourth day, Ferdia knew the contest would be decided, and he armed himself with especial care. Next his skin was a tunic of striped silk, bordered with golden spangles, and over that hung an apron of brown leather. Upon his belly he laid a flat stone, large as a millstone, and over that a strong, deep apron of iron, for he dreaded that Cuchulainn would use the ga-bog that day, and he put on his head his crested helmet, studded with carbuncle and inlaid with enamels, and girt on his golden-hilted sword, and on his left arm hung his broad shield, with its 50 bosses of bronze. Thus he stood by the ford, and as he waited, he tossed up his weapons, and caught them again, and did many wonderful feats, playing with his mighty weapons, as a juggler plays with apples. And Cuchulainn, watching him, said to Lag, his driver, "If I give ground today, do thou reproach and mock me, and spur me on to valor and praise, and hearten me if I do well, for I shall have need of all my courage." "O Ferdia," said Cuchulainn when they met, what shall be our weapons today?" "It is thy choice today," said Ferdia. "Then let it be all or any," said Cuchulainn, and Ferdia was cast down at hearing this, but he said, "So be it." Thereupon the fight began. Till midday they fought with spears, and none could gain any advantage over the other. Then Cuchulainn drew his sword, and sought to smite Ferdia over the rim of his shield, but the giant Firbolg flung him off. Thrice Cuchulainn leaped high in the air, seeking to strike Ferdia over his shield, but each time, as he descended, Ferdia caught him upon the shield and flung him off like a little child into the ford. And Lag mocked him, crying, "He cast thee off as a river flings its foam, and he grinds thee as a millstone grinds a kern of wheat. Thou elf, never call thyself a warrior." Then at last Cuchulainn's frenzy came upon him, and he dilated, giant-like, till he overtopped Ferdia, and the hero light blazed about his head. In close contact, the two were interlocked, whirling and trampling, while the demons and goblins and unearthly things of the glen screamed from the edges of their swords, and the waters of the ford recoiled in terror from them, so that for a while they fought on dry land, in the midst of the riverbed. And now Ferdia found Cuchulainn a moment off his guard, and smote him with the edge of the sword, and it sank deep into his flesh, and all the river ran red with his blood. And he pressed Cuchulainn sorely after that, hewing and thrusting, so that Cuchulainn could endure it no longer, and he shouted to Lag to fling him the ga-bog. When Ferdia heard that, he lowered his shield to guard himself from below, and Cuchulainn drove his spear over the rim of the shield, and through his breastplate into his chest. And Ferdia raised his shield again, but in that moment Cuchulainn seized the ga-bog in his toes, and drove it upwards against Ferdia, and pressed through the iron apron, and burst in three the millstone that guarded him, and deep into his body it passed, so that every crevice and every cranny of him was filled with its barbs. "'Tis enough," cried Ferdia. "I have my death of that. It is an ill deed that I fall by thy hand, O Cuchulainn." Cuchulainn seized him as he fell, and carried him northwards across the ford, that he might die on the further side of it, and not on the side of the men of Erin. Then he laid him down, and a faintness seized Cuchulainn, and he was falling, when Lag cried, "Rise up, Cuchulainn, for the host of Erin will fall upon us. No single combat will they give after Ferdia has fallen." But Cuchulainn said, "Why?" "Why should I rise again, O my servant, now that he that lieth here has fallen by my hand?" And he fell in a swoon like death, and the host of Mav, with tumult and rejoicing, with tossing of spears and shouting of war songs, poured across the border unto Ulster. But before they left the ford, they took the body of Ferdia and laid it in a grave, and placed a mound over him, and set up a pillar stone with his name and lineage in Ogam, in Ohm. And from Ulster came certain of the friends of Cuchulainn, and they bore him away into Murthemni, where they washed him and bathed his wounds in the streams, and his kin among the Danann folk cast magical herbs into the rivers for his healing. But he lay there in weakness and in stupor for many days. And Cuchulainn seized Ferdia as he died. The head still went on crying and crying.